In the centuries before chemists and clinics, Viking healers turned to nature's secrets. Moss-growing rocks, bitter roots and fragrant barks to tend wounds and soothe fevers. Tonight, we'll follow their footsteps through mist-shrouded woods and candlelit longhouses, uncovering remedies whispered from one generation to the next. If these tales of runic salves and midnight forays into boglands resonate with you, please subscribe so you never miss our descent into the past's green mysteries. Now, settle back, let the crackle of your hearth or the hum of ambient winds carry you away, and let us drift together into an age where faith and fern-leaf poultices intertwined under northern stars. Mist drifts like silk across the calm surface of the fjord as Adis steps barefoot onto the dew-moistened grass. The pale light of dawn filters through low clouds, painting the world in muted silver and rose. In her arms she cradles a bundle of fragrant heather, its tiny purple blooms still glistening with bead-like droplets. Each sprig carries the memory of countless healing chants whispered into the wind, passed from mother to daughter through generations of Viking-Age women who trusted only nature's slow, steady remedies. Adis follows a narrow footpath that winds between moss-clad stones and gnarled birches. Her breath puffs in the crisp air as she carried a blessing to Freya, asking for guidance and gentle strength. Along the way, she pauses to brush her fingers over clusters of lichen and star-shaped flowers, noting their shape and scent as if greeting old friends. The village beyond the inlet sleeps still, lanterns dark in every longhouse, but Adis knows her first patient awaits, a fisherman laid low by a fever that has drained his colour and dimmed his fierce spirit. Reaching the water's edge, she gathers smooth pebbles to steady her footing, then dips the ends of the heather stalks into the cold shallows. The ritual cold bath rouses the herb's secret oils, coaxing them to mingle with the icy water. With deliberate care, she strips leaves and flowers, arranging them into a poultice atop a flat stone. Each movement is slow, measured, an unspoken promise of patience and comfort to whoever will rest beneath her touch. Heather is said to chase away fever's hot whisper and calm restless hearts. As Adis pats the lavender-tinted paste onto the fisherman's brow later that morning, the scent of wild moorland drifts around them both, a subtle lullaby from the earth itself. In that serene hush, the promise of sleep and healing feels woven into every bloom. Inside the longhouse's low, smoky chamber, the glow of a single tallow candle dances across carved beams and woven tapestries. Solveig moves with deliberate calm, her leather apron rustling softly as she settles beside a carved wooden table. Before her lies a shallow bowl filled with ruby-red rowan berries, their skins taut and glossy like miniature lanterns. Outside, the wind moans around thatch and timber, but here, warmth and the soft scent of burning fat keep the shadows at bay. With a small bone spoon, Solveig crushes a handful of berries, letting their juice stain her fingertips a deep magenta. She hums an old lullaby, one taught by her grandmother, its notes like ripples on a still lake. Into the bowl she sprinkles fine ash from the hearth, then adds rendered fat from a past season's slaughter, stirring until the mixture thickens into a silky paste. The rowan's astringent tang mingles with the hearth's smoke, promising both antiseptic strength and gentle relief. Tonight's patient is Torvald, the blacksmith's apprentice, whose hands bear the marks of steel and fire, calloused palms streaked with soot and scar tissue. Solveig smooths the warm salve over the cuts on his forearms, murmuring a soft blessing to Ulla for steady hands. Torvald exhales, his stiff shoulders relaxing under her touch. The candlelight flickers, illuminating the silvery braid woven into Solveig's dark hair and the quiet confidence in her gaze. As the salve cools on Torvald's skin, the room seems to hold its breath. Even the flicker of flame feels hushed, as though honouring an age-old pact between healer and herb. Rowan berries are said to staunch bleeding and ward off infection, binding flesh in a gentle grip of calm. In that moment, the longhouses' shadows grow less daunting, and the bond between healer and villager feels as strong as the iron forged across the hall. The great wooden doors of the feasting hall stand wide, revealing splintered shields and blood-spattered planks. Amid the clash of war now past, Astrid kneels beside two stretched pelts on the rough floor, steeling herself against the sharp sting of battle's aftermath. The fallen have been carried in by farmers and shield maidens alike, their bodies weighed down by steel and sorrow. Astrid's calm presence offers a fragile sanctuary. She reaches into a leather satchel and withdraws bundles of fresh yarrow, its delicate white clusters bobbing like tiny stars. The herb's name, soldier's woundwort, is whispered by many for its power to staunch both blood and fear. Astrid strips the stalks, rolling clusters between her palms to release the herb's potent oils. Then, with a keen flint knife, she slices through clean strips of linen, each destined to cradle the yarrow's strength. One by one, wounded arms are cleaned with cool well water. Astrid works swiftly but gently, murmuring each patient's name and offering reassurance in a voice as steady as wind through pine. She presses yarrow blossoms directly onto fresh cuts, binding them firmly with linen wraps that glow faintly white beneath the torchlight. Each bandage carries the hope of healed flesh and mended courage. Beyond the torches, the hushed chatter of warriors awaiting word drifts in. Will their comrades rise again? Astrid cannot answer every question, but as she ties the final knot on a young raider's elbow, she places a soft hand atop his and shares a silent vow. His pain will not be forgotten, nor left to fester. In the quiet ritual of herb and cloth, the ravages of steel yield to the patient craft of healing. Yarrow's legacy lives on in every fibre of that hall, binding flesh and spirit alike. Under a vault of velvet sky dotted with distant stars, Ragnhild steps gingerly onto the spongy peat of the midnight bog. Her lantern's glow cuts a warm circle through the damp chill, illuminating plumes of silvery moss draped like fur across hummocks and hollows. The air is thick with earthy fragrance, a blend of wet earth and ancient growth. Each step yields a soft sigh from the ground, as though the land itself under her feet. Clad in a hooded cloak, Ragnhild, a protective charm to Jord, goddess of the earth, that her feet be guided and her hands held steady. Sensing the right patch, she crouches, lantern in one hand, and uses a bone-tipped knife to gently peel sheets of the pale, cushiony bog-moss. Each fragment is carried in a wicker basket lined with clean linen, essential to preserve the moss's cool dampness and healing oils. Bog-moss is prized for its absorbent qualities and mild antiseptic properties. Once returned to the longhouse, its spongy fibres will be pressed into poultices to draw out moisture from wounds and protect against infection. As Ragnhild works, she pauses to press a fragment to her cheek, its softness a soothing balm against the night's chill, and stamps a silent thanks to the bog's slow gifts. The wind stirs overhead, rustling treetops at the bog's edge, but Ragnhild remains calm, her breathing matching the earth's steady pulse. With each handful gathered, she imagines the fragile bodies she'll tend come dawn, a child with a splinter, a hunter with a sprain, a mother with a stubborn abscess. In the moss's cool embrace, she offers them a promise of gentle relief, whispered echo of the bog's own patient resilience. A hush falls over the longhouse as the hearth embers glow low and the wind rattles woven walls. Freydis kneels beside a trembling form draped in wool blankets. Young Gunnar, his cheeks flushed like sunrise against pale skin, his fever's heat rises and falls like restless waves. Freydis lifts a clay cup filled with steaming birch-bark tea, its amber hue shimmering in the ember light, and presses it gently into his cool hand. Drawing from a pouch at her waist, she removes strips of dried birch bark, slicing them into thin curls. The bark's bitter, resinous scent mingles with the hearth smoke. She murmurs a healing verse to Air, goddess of mercy, as she fills a blackened kettle with clear well water and sets it over the final coals. Soon the water hisses to life, and she drops the bark spirals into the pot, watching them unfurl like drifting tendrils. As the tea steeps, Freydis fans the kettle's rim with fern fronds to coax the aroma into the air. Each inhalation carries the promise of cooling relief and gentle calm. When the brew is ready, she strains the liquor through a cloth and brings it to Gunnar's lips. He sips slowly, the warmth sliding down his throat, and his eyelids flutter with a sleepy gratitude. Birch-bark contains compounds believed to ease fever and soothe internal fire. With each sip, Gunnar's breathing grows more even, the flush on his cheeks softening to a gentle rose. Freydis tucks the blankets snug around him, her hand lingering for a moment on his forehead, imparting a final blessing. Outside, the wind's lament fades into a distant whisperer. And inside, the crackle of dying embers becomes a lullaby. The gull cries echo over the rocky shoreline as Brynhild steps onto smooth stones, waves lapping at her leather boots. Dawn's pale light glints on tangled mats of kelp washed ashore, their dark fronds glistening with salt. She selects long strands of seaweed, bladderwrack and rat kelp, knowing their mineral-rich tissues soothe aches and draw out inflammation. The briny tang clings to her fingertips as she gathers the harvest, careful not to tear the fragile holdfasts still clinging to barnacle-encrusted rocks. With a small iron pot in hand, Brynhild trudges back toward the longhouse, footsteps muffled by damp seagrass. Inside, she rinses the fronds in fresh water, then warms them over the hearth until they release a gentle steam. She layers the warm seaweed onto clean linen cloth, creating thick compresses that smell faintly of iodine and salt air. The warmth beckons like a soft harbour, promising relief for the tired bodies of fishermen and warriors alike. Her first patient, Leif the boatwright, reclines on a straw pallet with swollen calves from hauling nets in the chill waters. Brynhild presses the warm compresses onto his limbs, smoothing the seaweed in long, rhythmic strokes. Leif exhales sharply. His muscles loosen, the stiffness ebbing like the receding tide. Outside, the gull's cry fades as the longhouse door closes against the morning breeze. Seaweed's natural alginates draw out toxins, while its abundant minerals nourish weary tissue. As Brynhild ties the compresses in place with soft linen ties, she offers a quiet prayer to Ran, goddess of the sea, in thanks for the ocean's bounty. The salt-tinged steam drifts upward, mingling with hearth smoke in a gentle haze. In that moment, the boundary between land and sea blurs, and both healer and healed find solace in the shore's ancient gifts. Twilight drapes the farmstead in muted rose, as Ingrid stands at the threshold, arm laden with fresh juniper branches. Each slender sprig, dotted with blue-green berries, holds a bright, resinous scent long prized for cleansing spaces of illness and unrest. The air is heavy with the day's labour, damp wool clothes, lingering hearth smoke, and the faint tang of livestock, yet Ingrid's arrival promises renewal. She strikes flint against steel, igniting the juniper tips until they smoulder with ember-red glow. A wisp of aromatic smoke curls upward, dancing in the dying light as she steps inside. Moving slowly through each low-ceilinged room, she waves the smoking branch in deliberate patterns. Over doorways, along the rafters, around the bed of the fevered child in the corner. The smoke weaves through every nook, carrying away invisible shadows of stagnation and opening each breath to fresh air. Behind her, the family watches in quiet awe. The child's laboured breathing eases as the juniper's antiseptic vapours mingle with the hearth's warmth. Ingrid, an old incantation taught by her mother, a siren's cadence that honours Odin's wild spirit and Eir's gentle touch. With every shh of scented smoke, tension seems to melt from the timber walls. In historic lore, juniper's cleansing power extends beyond the physical, purifying mind, body, and spirit alike. As Ingrid concludes her circuit, she taps the ember branch on a stone bowl, extinguishing the glow. The final curl of smoke drifts upward like a silent benediction. In the hush that follows, the family, as if inhaling hope itself. Outside, night settles softly, and within each room, the promise of health feels as tangible as the fragrant air. A hush falls over the forest clearing as the last ember of twilight dims beyond the pines. Gudrun kneels beside a shallow stone basin, its water reflecting the faint glow of gathering stars. In her hand she holds a handful of deep blue bilberries, small, round jewels she foraged at dusk's edge. Legends say the berry's juice sharpens the eye, rendering night as clear as day. Tonight, a young hunter named Eric seeks her aid, for tomorrow's moonless hunt will take him into wolf-haunted woods. Gudrun crushes berries between smooth stones, the dark liquid pooling like ink. She murmurs a low rhyme to Mani, god of the moon, honoring his silent watch. Into a blackened kettle she pours well water and sets it over low embers, stirring in the crushed berries until the mixture steams with a sweet woodsy aroma. The scent drifts through the pine-scented air, a gentle promise of sight restored. When the infusion is ready, Gudrun ladles the velvet dark tea into a carved wooden cup, its rim worn smooth by generations of healers. She hands it to Eric, whose breath catches at the liquid's warmth. "Sip slowly," she instructs, her voice soft as fern moss. As Eric drinks, Gudrun traces constellations on his shoulder, an ancient ritual linking the sky's patterns to the earth's bounty. With each swallow, Eric's gaze sharpens, the undergrowth's shapeless shadows resolve into familiar trunks and fern fronds. Gudrun watches the transformation with quiet satisfaction, knowing that bilberry's anthocyanins bind to eye tissues, extending vision into the dark. By the time the final drop warms his belly, Eric's world glows with newfound clarity, and the forest feels less a realm of lurking dangers than a friend revealed by gentle herb and healer's care. Soft sunlight filters through budding birches, as Helga strides into a sunlit meadow carpeted with bright yellow dandelions. The spring air carries the scent of damp earth and new growth. In one hand she clutches a leather pouch, in the other a slender digging stick. Today she gathers the woody roots of dandelion, long prized as a tonic for digestion and liver health. Each root she unearths is firm and fragrant, its pale flesh stained with soil's dark history. Helga pauses by a trickling stream to rinse the roots, her reflection rippling in the water's dance. She hums an old hymn of thanks to Freya for spring's return before slicing the roots into thin discs. Back at the hearth, she places them into a bronze cauldron with clear well water, letting the tonic simmer until it glows like liquid gold. The stew's aroma is earthy sweet, promising both gentle warmth and the slow clearing of bodily malaise. A group of villagers waits on straw mats, elders burdened by winter's stagnation, mothers worn thin by long months in dark houses. Helga cups a steaming ladleful of tonic for each, coaxing them to sip and breathe in the meadow-fresh air she's bottled in liquid form. As they drink, the tonic's bittersweet tang slides across their tongues, sparking a quiet sigh of relief. Legends speak of dandelion's power to stir sluggish humours and renew vitality after the cold hush of winter. Helga moves among her people, distributing cups and listening to the rising ease in their voices. In that gentle spring light, every emptied cup feels like a silent promise. The body, like the land, can awaken anew. Silver light washes over the clearing as the full moon climbs high, turning every leaf and branch into a luminous silhouette. Sigrid moves in quiet reverence, her soft steps stirring the dew on low ferns. In her arms she carries bundles of fresh mugwort, its silvery undersides glowing beneath the moon's gaze. Tonight she prepares her most sacred rite, weaving the herb's magic into dreams for those who cannot find rest. At the center of the clearing stands a simple wooden loom, strung with fine linen threads. Sigrid drapes strands of mugwort among the strands, entwining their silvery leaves like luminous ribbons. Her fingers move in practiced rhythm, creating a tapestry of leaves and threads that seem to pulse with midnight breath. As she weaves, she chants softly a gentle lullaby taught by the ancients, its melody winding through trees and stones alike. Once the dream cloth is complete, she ties its corners with soft leather strips and hangs it above a wooden cot where a weary traveller sleeps. The cloth's woven mugwort will release its subtle essence through the night, guiding the sleeper into calm visions, forest glades, starlit meadows, the soft murmur of distant streams. Each breath draws the herb's gentle magic deeper into the mind, weaving peace between conscious thought and dream. The traveller's chest rises and falls in smooth cadence. Their face, once etched with exhaustion, relaxes into serenity. Sigrid steps back, her heart steady with purpose. Mugwort's legacy is not just healing of the body, but weaving of the soul's hidden pathways, where worries unravel and hope takes root. As moonlight and herb blend into silent blessing, the world feels still, suspended in that fragile moment between wakefulness and dream. Soft light filters through narrow slits in the longhouse wall as Ulfhild moves among her waiting patrons, each swathed in woolen blankets that rattle like gentle thunder. In her hand rests a carved wooden ladle filled with the pale gold of elderflower cordial. The blossoms were gathered at dawn, their tiny petals still fragrant with dew, and steeped overnight to draw out their sweet-scented essence. Tonight, Ulfhild's task is to ease the coughs that shake each chest like distant waves against cliff rocks. One by one, she cups steaming cordial to trembling lips. Each sip releases a warm sweetness that glides like candlelight down the throat, coating raw membranes with comforting balm. Ulfhild, whispering, murmurs a silent prayer to air for mercy, her low invocation mingling with the hush of raven calls beyond the thatch. Villagers lean forward, eyes half closed, as the herbal remedy loosens phlegm and soothes tickling lungs. Between servings, she tends the cauldron, skimming froth and adding fresh blossoms to keep the brew bright. In the mellow glow of the hearth, Ulfhild's braided hair glints like spun gold, and the elderflower's scent hangs in the air, a promise of restored ease. As the final ladle passes, the room feels lighter, as though the very air has been cleansed. Outside, the night wind stills. Inside, each ember's glow seems warmer, each breath more even. In the wake of elderflower's gentle magic, the villagers drift towards sleep, their coughs softened into sighs of relief. A plume of resinous steam drifts upward from a black iron cauldron, as Solveig kneels before it. Her cloak's hood fallen back to reveal wind-touzled hair. Spruce needles, freshly gathered at dawn's first light, swirl in the boiling water, releasing a crisp pine aroma that fills the cramped chamber. The steam carries hints of forest rain and resin, uniting land and hearth in a healing embrace. Near the cauldron lies Gunnar, bones chilled from a night's fever that left him as pale as winter moonlight. Solveig adjusts the fire's embers to maintain a gentle simmer, then gathers the wisps of steam with a fine linen cloth, directing them toward Gunnar's chest. Each inhalation brings warmth, and the needle's antiseptic power, its oils loosening phlegm and easing each rattled breath. As she works, Solveig offers soft words, a lullaby, whispered under her breath, urging calm winds through his lungs. Above them, furs hung on rafters catch stray steam, diffusing the treatment throughout the room. Guests, once roused by coughs, now lie still, lulled by the chamber's pine-scented hush. When the steam wanes, Solveig gathers remaining needles, straining the liquid into a clay jug for repeat use. The remaining fibres will be pressed into poultices for later fevers. Spruce needle steam is celebrated for its ability to clear airways and calm infections' fire. As Solveig tucks blankets around Gunnar's shoulders, the pine's crisp whisper seems to echo through his dreams, guiding each breath into gentle steadiness. Outside, the wind rattles the longhouse door. Inside, peace settles like soft snow, each breath a testament to forest gifts and healer's care. Moonlight seeps through the smoke hole above the central hearth as Brynhild sits cross-legged on the earthen floor, weaving a garland of fragrant mugwort. Each silvery leaf she threads into the braid carries the herb's ancient promise. to calm restless minds and usher in gentle dreams. The longhouse sleeps fitfully around her, midwinter winds rattling the wattled walls. With deft fingers, Brynhild interlaces stems of fresh mugwort, its scent a bittersweet embrace of earth and evening. She hums a lullaby of old, a melody that once soothed her own childhood fears. As the garland grows, she whispers each villager's name into the weave, infusing it with personal blessing and intent. The soft rustle of dried ferns hung above the rafters seems to echo her chant. Upon completion, Brynhild moves slowly to each sleeping form, draping a length across pillows and tucking the ends beneath woolen cloaks. The mugwort's subtle oils will release through the night, imbuing each breath with tranquility and the promise of peaceful rest. A mother stirs, but settles back with a child's eyes close in deeper calm. Before the final knot is tied, Brynhild lights a small bowl of embers and dusts the ends of the garland with ash, an old ritual to seal the dreamweaver's work. The ash's quiet tang mingles with mugwort's silvery scent, forming a tapestry of earth and ember. As she stands in the circle of hearthlight, the longhouse feels bound together by shared solace. In that hush, Brynhild softly smiles, knowing the garland's gentle power will carry her people into soft, healing dreams. In the barn's cool shadow, Torhild kneels beside a rough-hewn bench, gathering fresh stinging nettle leaves with gloved care. Each leaf's serrated edge holds sting and remedy alike, a paradox known by every healer. As she works, she hums, a hymn to Freya, whose reign over growth grants nettle its strength. Her linen gloves protect her palms, but she cannot avoid the herb's gentle sting on her fingertips, a reminder of nature's exacting balance. Back in the longhouse, Jens, village carpenter stiff from years bent over wood, awaits relief. Torhild lays a layer of linen cloth across his swollen knee, then places mounds of crushed nettle leaves atop it. She presses firmly, coaxing the nettle's heated essence into the tendons below. The stinging sensation builds and then recedes, replaced by a soothing warmth that seeps deep into aching joints. Between applications, Torhild binds the poultice with strips of soft leather and hums, a blessing of resilience. Jens winces at first, but his brow smooths as the nettle's anti-inflammatory properties take hold. Outside, children's laughter drifts in, mingling with the earthy scent of pressed herb. As the final bindings are secured, Jens flexes his knee and nods, a small smile breaking through lines of fatigue. Nettle's sting is the healer's secret, pain that clears deeper pain. Nature's paradox of harm and help. Torhild steps back to admire her work, the green-lined bandage glowing in the firelight. For Jens, and for all who bear life's burdens in bone and tendon, the nettle poultice is a testament to the quiet power of patient healing. At the foot of a standing stone circle, Helmar collects pale strips of willow-bark, their sap-streaked undersides still fragrant with winter's wood smoke. Each fragment holds willow's ancient promise, a natural pain easer long revered by healers who walked paths before iron's rise. He tucks the bark into a linen satchel as dawn's pink light warms the frost-hardened ground. Back at the healer's hearth, Helmar fills a clay pot with cool well water and adds the bark curls, letting them steep over gentle embers until the liquid glows a warm amber. A soft hiss rises as oils and salicin mingle, their warmth hushing the promise of eased aches. Meanwhile, the longhouse's heavy door creaks open to admit a labourer whose shoulders sag under endless toil. Helmar pours the willow-bark brew into a wooden horn and hands it across the threshold. The labourer lifts the horn with thankful eyes and sips slowly, each swallow chasing away the grip of soreness. Helmar watches, noting how the brew's gentle bitterness softens into a mellow warmth, like sun on pale skin. As the labourer's shoulders relax, Helmar collects spent bark to dry for future poultices. He murmurs thanks to Thor for Willow's strength, then offers soft reassurance. Let the wood's quiet power walk with you until your bones find ease. Outside, the morning chill retreats before the sun's promise. Inside, the whisper of willow bark carries a timeless calm. On a low, grassy rise overlooking the fjord, Svanhild stirs a cauldron of honey infused with sprigs of blooming heather. The sunrise turns each droplet into molten gold, and the air is alive with summer's scent, sweet, floral, and warm. She hums an old lullaby to Freya, gathering the elixir that will ease the restless minds of villagers battered by months of storm and labor. Each blossom of heather, picked at dawn's first light, is twined into a sterling silver bowl and steeped in locally harvested honey. As the mixture melds over coals, Svanhild crushes remaining flowers to release oils, folding them into the warming liquid. The honey's viscous sweetness becomes a carrier for heather's gentle sedative qualities, promising restful sleep and tranquil dreams. That evening, in the longhouses' hush, Svanhild passes clay cups to weary folk, fishermen with salt-stung eyes, weavers whose hands shook from frigid looms, mothers whose nights were spent tending infants. Each sip sends a wave of warmth through the body, the honey's smooth thickness sliding like molten comfort down the throat. Villagers inhale the heather's soft scent, and eyelids grow heavy as a lullaby woven from flower and hive. By the fire's fading glow, the longhouse drifts into serene quiet. Svanhild gathers remaining elixir into small flasks for those who cannot stay, whispering blessings for safe passage to dream. In that golden stillness, the promise of drifting dreams feels as sweet and enduring as the sunset over the fjord. In the cool shadow of an oak grove, Brynjar digs into damp earth to unearth thick roots of angelica, their aromatic scent rising like whispered promises of digestive relief. Each root's pale core holds bittersweet power, a legacy of spring's first gifts to the healer's craft. He slices samples free, brushing away soil with a soft cloth before placing them in a glass vial. Back by the hearth, Brynjar fills the vial with aged grain spirit, sealing the angelica within. He murmurs an invocation to Frigg for nurturing and care, then hangs the vial above the embers to warm. Over days, the tincture will draw angelica's essence into the spirit, creating a potent drop form designed to settle turbulent stomachs. That evening, in the flicker of firelight, Brynjar offers a few drops on a wooden spoon to a merchant whose belly churns from salty fare and travelling dust. He instructs gentle sips of cleared water afterward. The merchant's furrowed brow softens as warmth spreads through his gut, the bitter bite giving way to calm order within. Angelica root is celebrated for easing spasms and aiding digestion, a balm for bodies worn rough by feasts and fasts. Brynjar watches as his patient rises with steadier steps, the tincture's subtle magic at work. He replaces the vial in his herb rack, ready for dawn's next gathering. The morning mist drapes itself over a sunken marsh as Ragnar wades carefully through knee-deep reeds, her wool cloak folded at her waist. In her hand she carries a basket lined with soft cloth, its pockets soon filled with oval green leaves of Labrador tea. Each leaf, with its subtle vanilla aroma, promises relief to lungs plagued by damp cold. She gathers handfuls before the marsh's chorus of frogs and bird calls, offering a soft word of thanks to Ran for the wetland's hidden gifts. At home beside the hearth, Ragnar rinses the leaves and sets them to simmer in a cast-iron pot filled with fresh spring water. The steam rises in fragrant clouds, filling the longhouse with sweet, woodsy warmth. She ladles steaming tea into earthenware mugs and carries them to waiting hands. Miners hushed by coughing fits, watchmen stiff from night's chill, and travellers whose lungs burn with each breath. Ragnar guides each recipient's first inhalation of steam, instructing them to hold breaths long enough to taste the marsh's calm. With every sip, the tea's oils glide down throats tight with cold, coating sinew and airways in soothing balm. Voices that once rasped now flow soft and even, gratitude shining in tired eyes. Labrador tea's gentle respiratory benefits have been whispered across generations, a testament to marsh's quiet power. As Ragnar refills the pot, the longhouse feels lighter. Laughter returns, and coughs fade into distant memory. In that fragrant haze, healer and healed share a moment of respiratory calm, the marsh's breath carried into every heart. A bitter tang hangs in the early light, as Einar crushes dried wormwood leaves within a stone mortar, his breath catching at the herb's pungent aroma. Each crushed flake promises digestive fortitude, a bulwark against feasts that strain the stomach and swift travels that leave bellies unsettled. He adds the crushed leaves to a glass jar and pours crisp well water over them, sealing in the bitter essence. At dusk, beside the flickering hearth, Einar strains the herbal infusion through linen, collecting the emerald-tinged cordial in a clay jug. He tastes a cautious sip and dilutes the mixture with honeyed water to temper the wormwood's edge. The result is a tonic both sharp and sweet, a bridge between remedy and indulgence. When a travelling minstrel arrives, doubled over with cramps from long roads and rich fare, Einar offers a shallow wooden bowl of the cordial. The minstrel lifts it with gratitude and sips, lips puckering at first, then relaxing as warmth spreads through his core. Einar watches as tension leaves the minstrel's brow, replaced by the ease of a settled gut. Wormwood's legacy in Viking herbalism is as sharp as its taste, invigorating the stomach's fires to digest what was once burdensome. As embers glow low, Einar seals the remaining cordial for future sojourners, his work a testament to the balance of bitter and sweet in healing's art. In the communal mead hall, the scent of honey and ferment hangs warm as Brynolf fills a wooden horn with juniper-berry mead. Fresh berries picked at summer's end impart a piney tang to the sweet brew, a tonic revered for its ability to kindle blood flow and soothe cold limbs. Torches glint off his braided beard as he makes his way through long rows of benches, horn extended. He offers the first draught to Elder Thora, whose joints ache from years of winters lived by northern seas. She raises the horn to her lips, the juniper's cool bitterness chasing away the sting of age before giving way to honey's warmth. Brynolf watches as her posture straightens, blood revived in limbs long stagnant. Next, he moves to fishermen recently returned, their fingers numb from dawn's cold nets. Each sip from Brynolf's horn brings colour back to pale skin and a flush of comfort. With each shared cup, the hall's chatter swells, tales of nets mended, voyages planned, a community bound by sweat, sea, and shared elixir. Juniper-berry mead blends mead's convivial spirit with herbal tonic. Its antioxidants and blood-thin properties celebrated by healers who prized movement and resilience. As horns empty and laughing laughter rises, Brynolf refills vessels. A blessing to Aegir for sea's bounty and to Frigg for hearth's warmth. When the final horn is drained, the hall feels alive, hearts beating stronger, spirits raised by honey and juniper's ancient harmony. Smoke curls from the hearth as Signa kneels beside a plank table, bowls of pale marshmallow root pulp awaiting her hands. A fisherman's hands, reddened and blistered from a spilled cauldron of rendering fat, rest on straw. Signa dips her fingertips into the cool, mucilaginous paste made from simmered marshmallow roots, then gently spreads it over each burn. The poultices' soothing slipperiness eases the sting, sealing moisture into wounded skin. She hums a soft charm to Aya, asking mercy for the fisher's pain. As she smooths each layer, the root's anti-inflammatory properties begin their work, drawing heat from the flesh and preventing blistering. The patient exhales in relief, muscles unclenching under her ministrations. When the final coat is applied, Signa wraps the area in linen strips, binding the poultice in place and leaving behind a cool, healing cushion. Outside, gulls wheel above the misty inlet. Inside, the fisher drifts toward calm. In Marshmallow's gentle embrace, the raw edges of injury soften, and the promise of mended flesh feels as steady as the tides. Twilight deepens as Yrsa stands in the hall's center, palm fan in hand, each slat laden with dried sage leaves. The longhouse's low beams hum with fatigue and frustration. Farmers worried over failing crops, smiths weighed by labor's grind. Yrsa strikes a flint to a tinder bundle, igniting the sage until it smolders, sending ribbons of smoke skyward. She fans the smoke toward each seated villager, circling the hall in measured steps. The warm, herbal perfume clears lingering worries from the air, sharpening focus like a whetted blade. Yrsa murmurs blessings to Odin for wisdom, tracing sigils of runic clarity in the smoke patterns. With each inhalation, foreheads smooth and shoulders relax as the mind's fog dissipates. By the final circuit, the longhouse feels bright with renewed attention. Conversations resume with calm deliberation. Plans for spring planting, careful debate of fishing routes, quiet laughter replacing tense frowns. In Sage's cleansing haze, clarity returns, and Yrsa's work stands as testament to smoke's subtle power over mind and spirit. Morning light filters through woven mats as Gudmundr fills a clay pot with clear spring water and stalks of fresh horsetail. Renowned for its high silica content, the plant was prized by smiths and stonecutters to strengthen bones. He lowers the pot onto coals, the water soothes around the slender stem. In the corner, a young apprentice nursing a fractured wrist watches as steam rises in pale tendrils. Gudmundr ladles steaming tea into a wooden cup, its aroma grassy and faintly sweet. He guides the apprentice's lips to sip, then describes how horsetail's minerals weave into bone tissue, knitting strength into brittle fractures. As the apprentice drinks, Gudmundr strains spent stems and repeats the tale of ancient healers who used horsetail poultices to mend broken limbs. With each cup, the apprentice's hope grows, and the hall's hush turns to soft conversation about renewed strength. In horsetail's quiet gift, bone and spirit alike find the promise of steady healing. Under a sky stitched with stars, Alvilda kneads a soft linen sack, filling it with dried chamomile blossoms and poppy petals. The two flowers mingle into a fragrant lullaby, chamomile's gentle calm and poppy's mild soporific whisper. She ties the sachet with twine and anoints it with lavender oil, a later addition that layers restful depth. In a nearby hut, a farrier's apprentice lies restless, mind racing with tomorrow's forging tasks. Alvilda places the herb sachet beneath his pillow and brushes a few petals onto his chest. She recites a soothing verse to Frigg, whose gentle hands cradle weary souls. Moments later, the apprentice's breathing slows, shoulders sagging as dreams unfurl like soft petals. The sachet's subtle scent drifts upwards, a silent lullaby in floral form. Across the settlement, windows glow dimly as villagers slip into deeper slumber, held by the chamomile poppy's tender alliance. Frost laces the windows as Brynny sets a blackened kettle over embers, fresh horehound sprigs bobbing in simmering water. The herb's minty bitterness, once sweetened with honey and boiled down, becomes a viscous syrup renowned for easing raw throats. Brynny ladles the amber liquid into a wooden cup, steam curling in soft rings. At the bench sits a travelling bard whose voice has all but failed him. Brynny offers a spoonful of syrup followed by a sip of cool water. The bard's eyes brighten as the syrup coats his throat, drawing out rasp and pain. He croaks a gentle hum, a promise of regained song. With practiced care, Brynny skims residue and adds fresh horehound for a second batch. Outside, the wind's bite fades in memory as the bard's voice grows stronger with each hum and note tested. In the hush, the longhouse bears witness to syrup's sweet balm and healer's steady touch. In a glade dappled by midday sunlight, Vigdis gathers bright yellow flowers of St. John's wort, naming each in whispered thanks to the sun god. Folk plagued by melancholy, soldiers homesick after winter raids, widows' hearts heavy with loss, seek Vigdis's infusion to lighten their souls. Back at the longhouse, she steepens the flowers in warm water until the liquid glows like sunset. She strains the infusion into clay bowls and invites each visitor to drink, asking them to focus on memories of laughter and light. The golden brew carries subtle warmth, and as it slides down throats, faces brighten, eyes moist with hopeful tears. Between cups, Vigdis shares soft stories of renewal. Green shoots in thawed earth, buds breaking into bloom. The infusion's gentle mood lift becomes intertwined with her words, weaving an experience both botanical and human. As the final bowl is drained, the longhouse's hearth seems to burn brighter, and hearts, once weighed by sorrow, feel lighter beneath St. John's wort's quiet blessing. A murmur ripples through the hall as Gudrun thrusts a handful of crushed garlic into a small clay dish. Its sharp odour cuts through stale air. She mixes the garlic with cooled sheep fat to form a paste, ancient lore promising potent antibacterial power. A farmer with a festering cut watches anxiously as Gudrun applies the pungent poultice. He winces at first, but soon the tingling heat gives way to a dull comfort, the fat sealing a protective layer over wounded flesh. Gudrun, a plea to air for the garlic's strength to purge infection. As the poultice sets, the hall's tension eases. Talk of abscesses and fear is replaced by quiet chatter of hope. Outside, wind rattles thatch, but inside, garlic's fierce aroma carries reassurance. Nature's alchemy at work in each pungent smear. Dappled sunlight warms a clearing where Solvi collects clusters of meadowsweet, its scented blooms nodding in a gentle breeze. Known for its salicylate compounds, the herb eases inflammation as reliably as a calm summer day. Back beside the fire, she simmers the loose flowers in a clay vessel until the brew's aroma turns sweet-honeyed. She strains the tea into wooden bowls and carries them to labourers whose joints ache from hauling logs and hauling nets. Each sip brings a soft warmth, the brew's sweetness a balm to tired limbs. As the men and women drink, their strained limbs relax. Chuckles' laughter returns in gentle waves. Solveig refills bowls and hums a soft tune, the meadowsweet's tranquil gift mirrored in her calm voice. In that golden haze, pain drifts away like fallen petals on a slow brook. At dusk, Brynhild ties bundles of dried wormwood to a low wooden beam above a patient's cot. The house is silent save for crackling embers as she sets each bundle aflame, smoke spiralling toward the rafters. The bitter-tasting herb, when inhaled, is said to purge unseen parasites from within. She moves from hearth to cot, guiding escaping smoke over the sleeper's limbs. The patient's chest rises smoothly as wormwood's cleansing vapours insinuate into the lungs. Brynhild, whispering, whispers runes for purification, praising Freyr for the land's hidden armoury against inner foes. By the final mirror of smoke, the house's air feels taut with renewal. Brynhild sweeps embers into a clay bowl, snuffing the flame. In the hushed hush, the promise of internal cleanse feels as vital as dawn's first light. Alaric scales a rocky slope to a solitary Scots pine, its resin beads glinting like captured sunlight. He pries a piece from the bark, its sticky surface revealing amber depths. Resin's antiviral properties were treasured by healers tending cold sores and skin cracks. Back in his hut, Alaric warms the resin over coals until it softens, then mixes it with rendered tallow to form a malleable salve. By firelight, he applies the warm mixture to a villager's cracked lips, smoothing resin into every crevice. The warmth stings briefly, then settles into a protective seal. The villager, cheeks softening as the salve's gentle antiseptic barrier takes hold. Outside, wind hammers shutters, but inside, the pine's woody aroma promises speedy relief. Alaric collects leftover salve for future need, his work a quiet testament to resin's sticky magic. A hush settles over the longhouse as Brynhild removes a dark glass vial from her leather satchel. Inside, a deep amber liquid shimmers, valerian root tincture, steeped for weeks in grain spirit. She holds the vial to the flickering torchlight, its contents glowing like captured dusk. Tonight, her task is to calm the restless mind of Einar, the chieftain's son, whose nights have been haunted by fevered dreams and racing thoughts. Brynhild pours a few drops onto a wooden spoon and approaches Einar's pallet, where he tosses beneath linen blankets. She gently lifts his chin, guiding the spoon to his lips. The tincture's aroma, earthy with a sweet hint of vanilla, wafts upward, anchoring him to the present moment. Einar drinks, and Brynhild murmurs a soft blessing to Aya, petitioning for mercy and tranquil sleep. As the tincture's subtle sedatives take hold, Einar's brow unfurrows and his breathing slows to a steady rhythm. Brynhild remains beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, offering silent vigilance. Around them, the longhouse's ambient sounds, creaking timber, a distant snore, fade into a gentle lullaby. In the tincture's embrace, Einar drifts beyond fear, carried into a realm where quiet forests whisper and moonlit streams murmur a promise of restoration. Valerian Root's legacy in Viking herbalism is its power to soothe the mind's storm, easing the tension that binds the spirit. As Brynhild replaces the vial and dims the torch, the longhouse seems to breathe a collective sigh. In that soft calm, healer and healed share a moment suspended between wakefulness and dream, a testament to nature's gift of peace. In the back chamber of the healer's hut, sunlight filters through a small window, dust motes dancing in the air. Gudrun stands at a low table, rubbing hazelnut oil between her palms until it warms. The pale gold oil, cold-pressed from autumn's harvest, is prized for its light texture and ability to nourish tired limbs. Today's patient is Brynja, a veteran shield-bearer whose calves ache from long marches and heavy armor. Brynja reclines on a straw pallet as Gudrun kneels beside him. She applies the oil in long, deliberate strokes, kneading from ankle toward knee, coaxing the blood to flow more freely. The oil's nutty scent mingles with the earthy aroma of herbs hanging overhead. Each movement is rhythmic, a silent song of care, designed to ease muscle tension and warm, chilled veins. As Gudrun works, she murmurs an invocation to Idun, keeper of rejuvenation, asking that the oil's potency seep into every sinew. Brynja exhales deeply, his breath syncing with the massage's tempo. The oil glides easily, leaving skin soft and supple. When Gudrun reaches his thighs, Brynja flexes his legs, marveling at the warmth spreading through his limbs. Hazelnut oil's high vitamin E content and light consistency make it ideal for stimulating circulation without clogging pores. By the time Gudrun finishes, Brynja's legs glow with renewed vigor, his joints freer and warmer than they've felt in weeks. As he sits to rise, he offers a grateful nod. Gudrun smiles, knowing that in each gentle knead and buttery stroke lies the promise of restored strength. A low hum fills the chamber as Freydis draws a wooden stool beside a simmering iron cauldron. Clusters of fresh yarrow float atop the fragrant steam, their lacy white blooms bobbing like tiny clouds. The patient, a grizzled oarsman named Halldor, sits wrapped in furs, his hand pressed to a throbbing temple. Storms at sea have rattled his head, leaving him wary of each creak and gust. Freydis lifts a linen cloth and drapes it over Halldor's head and the cauldron, creating a warm tent of herb-laden vapor. Inside, the air turns heady with yarrow's sharp, herbal sweetness. Breathe deeply, she instructs in a soft voice, pressing the cloth gently to seal the steam within. Halldor inhales and his shoulders relax as the steam's heat and yarrow's oils loosen tension around his sinuses and skull. With each long breath, Freydis murmurs a blessing to air and Odin, asking for the headache's grip to slacken. Outside, the wind's howl fades to a distant echo. Inside, the rhythmic hiss of steam becomes a lullaby. After several minutes, Freydis lifts the cloth, revealing Halldor's eyes closed in relief. His brow is damp, but the pinched lines have eased and colour returns to his cheeks. Yarrow's reputation as soldier's woundwort extends beyond cuts. It also soothes pressure and calms the head's storm. Freydis strains the remaining herbal infusion into clay flasks for Halldor to use if the ache returns. As he rises, steadier and more focused, the chamber feels hushed and bright, a testament to the quiet alchemy of herb and steam. Late afternoon light filters through small windows as Astrid prepares a pampering treat. A facial mask of heather honey and ground oats. Villagers, battered by wind and salt, fishermen, shepherds and wool carders, gather around the hearth, curious for relief from dry, cracked skin. Astrid unmasks a wooden bowl filled with pale oats, then drizzles in golden heather honey, stirring until the mixture takes on a creamy texture. She blends in a handful of freshly foraged heather blossoms, their purple petals bright against the honeyed paste. The sweet, floral scent rises in warm waves as she scoops a generous dollop onto her fingertips. One by one, she spreads the mask in gentle circles across each face, smoothing the blend into skin parched by sun and wind. Villagers inhale its fragrance, soft, earthy, comforting, as their cheeks flush with warmth. Astrid hums a lullaby of renewal taught by her grandmother, each gentle note weaving reassurance. She leaves the masks to set, inviting the recipients to recline on benches and close their eyes. As the honey draws in moisture and the oats soothe irritation, the hearth's glow softens harsh lines. After a time, Astrid returns with warm cloths, wiping away the mask to reveal skin renewed, rosy, supple, and lightly kissed by heather's calming essence. In the hush that follows, villagers touch their cheeks in wonder, marveling at the healer's humble brew. Astrid collects leftover honey and blossoms to dry for future masks, her smile bright. In that gentle ritual, honey and heather combine to soothe not just skin, but spirits, binding community through shared care. As dusk settles, Brynja arranges small linen pouches on a wooden table, each awaiting its soothing blend of dried valerian root and chamomile blossoms. The combination, valerian's earthy calm and chamomile's gentle lull, has lulled many a restless soul into peaceful slumber. Tonight, she crafts sachets for villagers plagued by insomnia after long days of toil and worry. With careful hands, Brynja measures each herb into the soft fabric. 2 pinches of chamomile's golden flower heads, a single teaspoon of crushed valerian root. She ties each pouch with twine, then anoints them with a drop of lavender oil for depth. Holding a finished sachet aloft, she, savouring the bouquet of floral sweetness, undercut by valerian's warm earthiness. She moves through the settlement, placing a sachet beneath the pillow of every sleepless villager, from the watchman wide-eyed on night lookout to the midwife weary after moonlit birth. Brynja whispers, a quiet blessing to Frigg, invoking gentle rest. With each placement, she offers a soft word, may dreams be kind and morning gentle. Later, the longhouse dims to ember glow. One by one, the sleepers hush, shoulders dropping, brows smoothing, breaths rounding into steady rhythm. The sachet's subtle aromas mingle, weaving an invisible net of calm overhead. In that serene hush, Brynja surveys her work, heart light. Through humble herbs and caring touch, she has spun slumber's promise for all beneath the moonlit sky. At the edge of a shaded grove, Saun sits upon a moss-cushioned stone, unweaving fronds of maidenhair fern with deliberate precision. A travelling craftsman, his ankle twisted on a hidden root, lies on a nearby cloth. Whoa! With each breath, the air is thick with the musk of damp earth and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. With swift, practiced fingers, Saun layers the fern's supple leaflets directly onto the swollen joint, their natural fibres moulding to its contours like living plaster. She wets the fronds in a nearby spring, then presses them firmly against the injured tendon. The fern's slight resin releases, cushioning joint and drawing away inflammation, while its fine veins provide gentle compression. Saun then wraps the assembly in a strip of linen torn from her skirt, securing it with a single knot. Each pull of the cloth is measured, not too tight to choke circulation, yet firm enough to hold the fern bandage in place. As the craftsman flexes his foot, a soft of relief escapes his lips. Saun, a blessing to air and Aegir, thanking both earth and water for their gifts. She instructs him to rest and return at dawn, when she will replace the bandage and guide gentle mobilization exercises. In the hush of the grove, the fern's cooling promise seems to bind flesh with leaf in a pact of patient healing. In the longhouse's warm glow after feasting, Torvi stands beside the hearth stirring a bronze kettle of simmering meadow-sweet blossoms and fresh mint leaves. The aroma, Sweet, honeyed floral softened by mint's cool brightness floats through the rafters, teasing senses dulled by rich fare. Guests recline on benches, bellies full and spirits warm, while Torvi prepares a digestif to ease heaviness and aid gentle digestion. She ladles the amber infusion into small wooden cups, garnishing each with a single mint sprig. Sip slowly, she instructs, passing the cups along the benches. Villagers inhale the blend's soothing fragrance before tasting its sweet herbal warmth. As the liquid slides down throats, murmurs of relief ripple through the hall, hearts lighten, and burdens dissolve in the digestif's mellow rhythm. Between servings, Torvi dips fresh blooms into the kettle, replenishing meadowsweet's salicylate strength and mint's vivifying oils. She hums an old refrain to Freya, invoking growth and renewal. By the time the final cup is emptied, the feast's lethargy has lifted. Chuckles, laughter returns, conversation brightens, and each stomach settles into contentment. In meadowsweet and mint's gentle balance, guests find comfort, body soothed, spirit enlivened. A hush falls over the village square as Haldora presses strips of elder bark into a shallow clay bowl. The bark's silvery underside reveals pale wood beneath, prized for its anti-inflammatory and bruise-fading properties. With deft strokes, she crushes the softened strips into a coarse pulp, adding a splash of well water to bind the mixture into a thick paste. Nearby, a young shepherd staggers to her, thigh darkened by a heavy blow from a fallen branch. Halidora spreads the elderbark poultice over the mottled flesh, layering it like mortar between stones. The cooling paste clings to skin, drawing aches outward and soothing bruised muscle. She secures it with a length of soft hide, knotting it above and below the injury. As the shepherd flexes his knee, pain eases into a dull thrum. Haldora murmurs a blessing to Air and Ethan, calling on rejuvenation and mercy. Over the next hours, villagers pass by to admire the healer's steady hand and the bark's gentle alchemy. Where vivid purple once marred flesh, a pale haze begins to form, promising swift recovery. In elderbark's quiet grace, wounds fade like evening shadows. In a secluded corner of the healer's garden, Ronvalder harvests young hemlock shoots, their slender stems and delicate leaves bearing potent muscle relaxant qualities when properly prepared. He handles them cautiously, aware of the herb's toxicity in raw form. Back at the cottage hearth, he simmers the shoots in gentle vinegar until softened, then dilutes the infusion heavily with warm water to render it safe for topical use. That evening, he applies the cooled liquid in compresses to the tense shoulders of a veteran shield-bearer whose muscles have knotted from years of bearing heavy shields. Ronvalder soaks cloths in the hemlock wash, then wraps them around the warrior's sinewed muscles, pressing firmly. A faint warmth blooms beneath the bandages as the softened compounds seep through, loosening tight fibers and easing the warrior's burdens. Between compress changes, Ronvalder chants a quiet lullaby to Ea, balancing caution with care. The warrior, his arms unfurling from their rigid coil, in that dimly lit chamber, hemlock's once feared power is harnessed with respect, transforming a poison into a balm for muscles weary of war. At twilight's height, the entire village gathers on the grassy mound beneath an ancient oak. Freya stands at the trunk's base, arms raised, her cloak swirling with evening breeze. In her hands are wreaths woven of fresh oak leaves, symbols of strength, endurance, and healing. One by one, she drapes a wreath around each villager's shoulders, murmuring a blessing to Thor and Idun for robust health. The oak's gnarled limbs stretch overhead, leaves in the wind like a chorus of ancestors. Freya dips each wreath into a bowl of spring water infused with crushed herb remnants from the season's cures, heather, yarrow, and rowan, imparting their collective potency. As she places the wreath upon the last villager, she raises a carved wooden cup filled with juniper-spiced mead and calls for a communal sip. Murmurs rise into song as villagers taste the bittersweet mead, feeling the oak's steadfast power pulse through them. Freya's voice rings clear. May this blessing bind body and spirit. May health root deep as this mighty oak. A final gust stirs leaves overhead, showering the gathered in a gentle rain of cooling green fragments. In that luminous dusk, healer and healed unite beneath oaken sky. The ritual's echoes linger in each heart, a promise that, through leaf, bark, and shared belief, the village's strength endures. As darkness settles, the wreaths rest on shoulders like living armor, carrying every soul into a season of wellness and quiet peace.